Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, the radio chick, Annie Ubelis. Join Annie on Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with an open chat room full of her regulars. And yes, you can even call in. Call 917-889-3675. That's 917-889-3675 to be a part of the action on the phone line. Not able to listen live? Not a problem. You can always catch Annie, the radio chick, and Southern Sense Talk Radio podcast in archives at southern-sense.com. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Southern Sense the right way.
Good afternoon. You're here listening live to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, American Patriot Radio, SHR Media, High Plains Media, Daily News, Kinetic Hi-Fi, The Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie, along with my oh-so-sophisticated and suave co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett of theoriginalradicals.com. Good afternoon, Curtis.
How are you today, Annie?
I'm doing fine. And people should check out our show by going to our webpage, which is Southern Sense, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. And we're still sitting, Curtis, at number 16 of the top 100 on toptalkradio.com. Check it out. Check out our website. We've got a great show going on today. Great guests. So much to talk about. Oh, my goodness. I probably could do a 6-hour show with all the stuff that is hitting the fan. Oh, my God. But we have limited time.
Hey, I'm up for
it. Limited time and just great guests that we're going to be talking to. At the start of the show, we're going to have Mike Hill, a previous guest on the show, former Florida legislator. And also we're going to have a former Marine. He actually was a Marine Guard for the embassies, and now a pastor. Pastor David K. Jackson will be joining us. He's a life coach, a motivational speaker. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. Want to welcome everyone that's in the chat room and those that are listening in the studios. Buckle up, guys, because it's going to be one heck of a ride today. And Curtis, have a special announcement for those listening in. On February 28th, 1 week from today, we will have a special guest joining our show. It'll be Colonel Alan West. It is confirmed, got perfect confirmation today. So I'm going to start putting that out there so people can be aware and mark their calendars. So Colonel West will be joining us. And are we going to have fun with that one? Where do we start? Those that listen to the show know that we start off each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And unfortunately, I've been doing too many of these dedications to fallen law enforcement. Once again, we dedicate this show to another law enforcement officer who fell in the line of duty. Trooper Frankie Lamar Williams of the New Jersey State Police, New Jersey. His end of watch was Monday, December 5th of this past year, just before Christmas. And this is by S.P. Sullivan of the New Jersey Advanced Media for NewJersey.com. Rows of police officers standing at attention awash in red and blue emergency lights saluted the car carrying the trooper away from the hospital in the dead of night. New Jersey State Trooper Frankie Williams, 31, passed away on Monday, December 5th of 2016. From injuries sustained in a head-on collision on Highway 55 in Millville City, a dangerous stretch of roadway that has seen at least a dozen fatal accidents this year, according to the state police. The rookie trooper graduated from the academy in January of 2016, part of the division's 156th class, and was assigned to the Port Norris Station in Cumberland County. Not even a year on the job, he worked tirelessly toward. A family friend said he also had just gotten married in October. The division lost an exemplary young trooper with the promise of a great career, said Colonel Rick Fuentes, the head of the state police. A family lost an only child, a wife lost a husband, and New Jersey lost a leader and role model. Authorities say the trooper was headed northbound on the highway near mile marker 22, responding to a report of an erratic driver. When a man traveling the other way crossed the grassy median and hit his marked troop car head-on, tangling the two cars in a wreck that took hours to clear. The driver was identified as Lloyd Rudley, 61, of Elmer. Authorities said Rudley's Toyota Corolla matched the witness descriptions of a vehicle that was driving erratically in the area. Mike Lippincott, the chief of the Millville Fire Department, said emergency crews arrived to find a very bad scene, with both drivers heavily trapped. Rudley was pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of the crash remains under investigation. Williams was flown to Cooper University Hospital in Camden, where he was later pronounced dead. By then, more than 50 fellow troopers and police officers had arrived to hold vigil and stood at attention as his body was driven away from the hospital, a county spokesman said. Williams, an Atlantic County resident, was remembered as a dedicated trooper who spent years working full-time as he studied criminal justice, dreaming of entering the academy and joining the statewide force. Not long after he earned his badge in August, he made headlines when he rescued a small dog that had been locked in a hot car in Salem County and was suffering from severe heat stroke. The trooper smashed the car window with his baton and took the dog to a shaded area, dousing it with water to cool it down, authorities said. He performed his duty more like a 6-year veteran than a 6-month rookie, a state policeman wrote in remembrance posted on the division's Facebook page. Elizabeth Moore, a site coordinator for Rutgers University program that allows students at Atlantic Cape Community College to study towards a university degree, remembered Williams as a star student at her program. He was a leader among his peers and just a very kind and well-spoken individual, she said. He always wanted to be a state trooper. Williams worked as a security manager at a Lowe's home improvement store while attending school and graduated from Rutgers Camden with a degree in criminal justice in 2012. That year, Moore said, he was a guest speaker at the dedication for a building where he had just taken classes. She kept in touch with the trooper as he studied toward a master's degree, hoping to learn more about forensics and data analysis in policing. She said he was devoted to his wife, Kimberly, whom he married in October. When he was graduating from the academy, he came to see me, and he told me he never would have made it through without her, Moore said. He gave her all the credit. At the Port Norris barracks where the trooper was stationed, the flag flew at half-staff. Williams was the 71st trooper to die on the job in the force's 95-year history. While the shooting of law enforcement personnel have captured national attention in recent months, the leading cause of death for police officers is automobile accidents, according to state and national data. That's especially true here in New Jersey, where the last 4 state troopers who died in the line of duty were killed in car crashes or struck while on foot, all of them in the last 2 years. Today's show is dedicated to Trooper Frankie Lamar Williams, but is also dedicated to all the brave men and women every day who strap on their uniform and go out to protect and serve as first responders, be they police officers, firefighters, or emergency services. It's also dedicated to the brave men and women who have served our nation to defend it as our military. From the birth of our nation to today and into the future, we dedicate this show and this song by Dave Bray, Last Call. God bless them all.
I'm sorry. That I can't be the man that she's gonna be. Tell her I'll be waiting where the winter meets the fall. This is my last call. Tell my children that I love them. Oh yeah, but daddy always loved them so. Tell them to hold their mother's side and to never let her go. Tell them I'll always be watching, looking over them through it all. This is my last call. Tell them to fight for me. Do what's right for me. Choose the light for me. Don't ever forget me. Tell them I'll always be watching, and I'll be there when they fall. This is my last thought. Those who serve beside me and who held that thin blue line, stand tall, stand strong, hold your head up high. I'm sorry I let you down today, but please know I gave my all. This is my last call.
Keeping with the traditions of the great American Southwest, when heroes were needed, they appeared. People who would mete out truth and justice and defend the weak. People like Vito and Al, Kel, Paul, Annie, LaShonda and Bill, Gotti and Dee, Chuck, David, Kath, Foster and Mike. The modern-day heroes of the Internet airwaves and the hosts of the magnificent 7 days of programming you can listen to each week right here on AmericanPatriotRadio.com.
Hi, this is Annie Ubelis, the radio chick of Southern Sense Talk Radio. I'm inviting you to join me and my guests to listen to us on Southern Sense Talk Radio. You'll find us informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect, but you'll never be bored. You'll never know where we'll go, but you'll love the journey. You can join us every Tuesday and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Southern Sense, and that is Southern with a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com.
All right, and we're back. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, American Patriot Radio, SHR Media, High Plains Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie, along with my co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett, Curtis, we're waiting for our guest to call in, so I'm just looking for something to fill in until he does. But, man, I don't even know where the heck to start. I'm actually looking for a specific item, something I came across, which is really, really creepy. And I know I have it here. I just saw it. There is this doll called a Carly doll. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of this doll, but it is a Bluetooth toy. And what it does is it actually monitors your kid. It records everything and transmits it via Bluetooth through the internet and then talks to your child without you knowing it or having any control over it. Now, that is creepy. The doll has actually been outlawed in Germany. And I don't know if this doll is here on the American shelves, but it's something that parents should be actually aware of and look out for. And where the heck did the article go? I know I saw it.
That is very creepy.
Yeah.
Almost like they can indoctrinate your children without your knowledge.
Here it is. I found it. I know I'm not nuts. I know I'm not that crazy. This was called Mom Me Carly Wicking. It's a toy, and they look cute. You know, one's blonde hair, one's got dark hair, and one happens to be black. And it's a cute-looking doll, but the tech issues are saying that they're basically illegal in Germany, and they're advising people if they do find it, completely destroy it. Don't replace it, just completely destroy it. Said not only can hackers eavesdrop on your child, but they can speak to them through the doll. Can you imagine what pedophiles could do with these dolls? Oh, my goodness. The Vivid Toy Group...
Not only that, government.
Yeah. But the Vivid Toy Company, which distributes the dolls, claims the product is safe. Yet the company and Toy Retailers Association clearly state that keeping the child safe while playing with the doll is up to parents. Ah, man, that is scary. You know, think about all the smart devices we now have around our houses. Think about that. You got now TVs that can watch you, dishwashers, wash machines. They're all smart devices that are able to transmit what you're doing via the internet to someone that you don't even know where this information is going or who's using it for what purpose. You've got those new, what are they called, Echoes that Amazon is promoting? That, you know, you say, Echo, play such and such a music or whatever it is, or set the alarm or this or that. Those things actually listen to what is going on in your home or your office, wherever you have these damn devices. When I was in D.C.
See, Annie?
Yeah, what?
I was just going to say they make these toys so friendly and playful that the younger generation look towards us as being paranoid, you know? Mm-hmm. And they don't see the dangers and these technologies that are coming out. And it's something we have to find a way to break through to these kids that, you know, everything that looks like fun and games isn't always fun and games. It could be some agenda behind it.
Yeah, there is. And you know, when we were up in D.C. and we had rented this private apartment, the couple that lived there had one of these Amazon Echoes. And we kind of like joked saying that, hey, maybe it's listening to everything we're saying. We didn't say anything that you have to be worried about. But it is frightening to think that, you know, you're being recorded without you actually knowing. And you have no idea where these recordings are going or who's listening in on them. It's very, very scary. I mean, think about it. You buy a computer now, 99% of the laptops they sell today, the iPads and everything else, have these forward cameras. So while you're sitting at your computer, someone can actually access your computer remotely and activate the camera. Oh, God forbid you have your computer in your bedroom while you're undressing, or you take your iPad with you into the bathroom while you're showering so you can listen to some music or something. You think about this. This has become a very scary world. And not being paranoid, you've just got to be cautious.
Well, that's from the inside. Now you have to worry about the outside. It could be a drone hovering outside your window.
And that has happened. That has happened. Listen, it looks like our guest is having difficulty calling in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of a break, And we're going to play a little music and see if I can get him in on the line. All right? We'll be right back. This is Jeremy Dodge, I Am American. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, is this David?
It is?
Hi, David. It's Ann with Southern Sense Talk Radio. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you today?
All right. You were where you have an interview with us today, right?
This afternoon, I thought, right? No?
This is the afternoon.
Okay, yeah, I had another interview scheduled for 2:30. I guess I got them mixed up.
All right. Well, we're live on now. If you need to bug out early, just let me know, okay?
Oh, no problem at all.
All right. I got some music playing, so as soon as it's done, I'll bring you on live. All right.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
It's not about party, it's about what's right. American, taking back our country, come and join the fight. American, somebody's gotta stand up. Somebody's gotta do what's right. We're rising 'cause we're fed up. Got our house in order and got yours inside. I am American. That's what I am. That's what I say and what I do. I am American. That's what I am. And I bleed red, white, and blue. And I bleed red, white, and blue. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I am American. That's what I am. It's what I say and what I do. I am American. That's what I am. And I bleed red, white, and blue. And I bleed red, white, and blue. And I bleed red, white, and blue.
All right, that's Jeremy Dodge, I Am American. And we're back here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, American Patriot Radio, SHR Media, High Plains Daily News, Kinetic Hi-Fi, The Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina, and still on TopTalkRadio.com at number 16 at the top 100. Of course, I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, along with my so wonderful co-host Curtis C.S. Bennett. Curtis, we've got our guest on the line. Shall we give a rousing welcome to Pastor Davis K. Jackson? Good afternoon, Pastor.
Good afternoon, and thank you guys for the opportunity.
It is our pleasure. Our pleasure. Curtis, join in, because here you've got a fellow military guy with you.
I see. United States Marine Corps. Number 5.
Number 5.
Curtis served in the Navy during Desert Storm, so he's a good guy with me. Listen, you've got
Well, thank you for your service, sir.
And thank you for yours.
Thank you both.
Embassy security.
You got a great book out called Life in the Second Half, and it's a great read, really fast read. But boy, there are a lot of snowflakes on November 9th that could have read your book, don't you think?
The book, of course, where I parallel the game of life with basketball and football, and we like to share with people that no matter who wins the first half, of course, the game of life is won in the second half. And my vantage point is one of optimism, and I believe that just as sure as the glass can be half empty, it can also be half full. And I think your vantage point determines your view. So I challenge people to not, try and approach everything from a positive perspective, and you can get, a positive response when you approach it from a positive perspective. And that's my opinion on most things in life.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was reading your book, I'm going, geez, I'm doing everything that you say in the book to do. It has been my life view at everything that you're talking about. When you look at a problem, don't look at it as a problem. Look at it as a challenge. All right, this is what I'm facing. This is the end result I'm looking to achieve, or I'm hoping to achieve. Now, what can get me from point A to B? And what do I need to do to accomplish that? And if I don't, let me try again and again until I do accomplish that. Isn't that basically what you're saying in your book?
Absolutely. Great summarization. And I challenge people to, I think from your problems can come power. And a lot of the challenges, we refuse to acknowledge and or accept our own problems. We can greatly and easily readily identify another person's problem or challenge, but we refuse to accept our own. And when we begin to accept our own, we realize that our problems didn't come to imprison us, but they ultimately came to empower us. It's just your perspective on your problem. And I think one of the greater challenges is not accepting or not communicating or not expressing the fact that you have a personal challenge. And the fact of the matter is everybody has an it, as I talk about in the book. Your it is different from perhaps the person that is next to you and their it, but you're going to discover that everybody has an it. Now, when you identify your it and face your it head on and determine for yourself that I choose empowerment rather than imprisonment, your life begins to change almost immediately.
It's funny because recently I just had some serious issues here within my family where I ended up becoming a primary caregiver to someone. He's on the road to recovery, thankfully. But in the interim, I ended up with my own issues. And, I was in the doctor's office and the nurse is there going, I feel so bad for you. And I said, why? And I said, this will pass. We'll get past this. You just got to look at what you're facing and deal with it and move on. And I said, the most important thing is that while you're doing it, keep a sense of humor. Don't let yourself get down. Just look at it as if you've got something that just blip in your life. And all right, fine, let's get over that hump. But just be able to always look at it to find some sort of humor at all. Whether or not you're laughing at yourself, laughing at the situation. But if you don't do that, you'll just let yourself get dragged down.
Exactly. I mean, I'm totally on board. And again, I think it's identifying it from how it can positively impact you rather than how it's going to negatively affect you or impact you. And I challenge people all the time, and I'm always amazed at that person, and no matter what it is, they have to approach it from a negative perspective. And I share with people and challenge them. Just as surely as you can approach it from a negative perspective, you can also approach it from a positive perspective. And there's going to be an outcome, and no matter what the outcome is, you can use the outcome to positively, impact you again, or in other words, to gain something from it.
It's funny because everyone loves to play the victim. And instead of taking responsibility for their actions or accepting the situation that they're in and finding a way to dig themselves out of it, they play the victim, but that's the easy way out. It's hard to turn around and say, right, fine, this is my goal and this is what I have to do through it. No, just play the victim, all right, and then if you can't find a job, then all right, I'm going to apply for welfare and I'm going to apply for food stamps. No, just keep on pounding the pavement until you get that job. You may be mopping floors in McDonald's. Damn it, I've been there. I've done that. But at least you're working. At least you're building your life back up. This is what our society is saying now. No. Take the easy way out. Play the victim. We'll play up to you, and that's the way your life's going to be for the rest of it.
You nailed it. I had a conversation with my older brother today, and I was telling him in a word. I said the word is accountability, and I think we find ourselves today, with all things considered, I think the problem or the challenge with the world, in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, and I would also share that I'm a preacher, a pastor, not a politician. So here goes. Accountability. We live in a world now where, based upon affiliations, in other words, if you're a Democrat and you're wrong, it's okay because you're a Democrat. If you're a Republican and you're wrong, it's okay because you are a Republican. If you're wrong as Ann, the host, it's okay because you're Ann, the host, and you're wrong. And at some point, we have to draw a line and declare accountability. If you are wrong, you are wrong. Whether you're my sister, my brother, the host, Democrat, Republican. And I think affiliations have caused us to become blind to right and wrong. And the term, I think the practical, the more functional term that everybody's using now is political correctness. And political correctness is destroying our country.
You know, it's funny because it's very difficult for people today to say I'm wrong. You know, one of the first things I learned is own up to it. If I am wrong and you correct me and I find that you are correcting and I am the one who made the error, I have no qualms about saying, you're right. Thank you for showing me what the actual truth is. I've learned from it. People are not willing to do that. The second you say you're wrong, their back goes up and they become very defensive, and no way are you going to break down that barrier at that point.
Absolutely right. And I'm 110% on board with that. Again, accountability and being able to face and admit your shortcomings. Everybody has them. And you have shortcomings for a reason. And what people don't, in my opinion, again, I'm of the belief that people don't understand the way that you come about wisdom is through experience. And what most people don't want to admit is your greatest wisdom comes from some of your worst or bad experience.
Oh, if you don't learn,
in the world that we live in today,
yeah, if you don't learn from your errors, how are you going to advance in life? Everyone makes errors. And this is what I've said many times on the show. The greatest thing about America is that you're allowed to fail as many times as you want. A lot of other countries, you fail once. Hey, I'm sorry. The rest of your life is in the trash heap. But here in the United States, you can be as much as a failure as you want. But in the end, you most likely have the ability to succeed because you learned from your failures. We're not someone who says, oh, yeah, you're no good as a violinist, so, you'll never be a musician. So you may as well pack it up and, flip burgers or something because you'll never amount to anything. That's the attitude that you have in Europe and a lot of other countries, but you don't have that here. It's like, all right, fine, you can't play the violin, so what else can you do? Where is your talent? Where can you succeed?
Well, I think, again, the political correctness and the mindset or the order of the day is we're now rearing and grooming our children to participate in athletic leagues where there are no losers.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a trophy. You show up, everybody gets a trophy, whether you play or whether you're talented or not. And that's not the real world. That's not life. Life comes with, the Bible even records, a man born of a woman is of a few days, but full of trouble. It's just going to happen. But trouble wasn't designed just because you were born. It's just a part of being in this existence that trouble just happens. And trouble comes to, I tell people all the time, troubles try you to triumph.
Mm-hmm.
Your troubles try you to triumph. In other words, as a result of your troubles, you're going to pass through trials, but ultimately you're going to inherit triumph if you will continue and not give up. But if the first time you encounter or inherit trouble, you quit, you run away, it doesn't go away. My grandfather would say that. He had a cliche that he would say, for every test that you fail, you'll be made to try it again until you get it right. Do you know what some people would think today if you were to share that with them?
Oh, yeah.
Every test that you fail, you'll be made to try it again until you get it right. That's not fair.
That's not justice.
Pastor Jackson.
Yes.
Pastor Jackson. We have children being raised today. We have children being raised today with little spiritual upbringing, and we can see it in the age of children who commit crimes and theft and other bad things. What is your ministry doing to kind of like help children like this who don't really have a strong, moral upbringing?
Great question. The first thing that I would say, I pastor the Magnolia Baptist Church in Tuskegee, Alabama. And one of the things that I share with the families, more in particular, but especially the youth in my church, one thing that I share that they are our future. And there's a program that I have called Feeding Our Future. And in Feeding Our Future, what we are endeavoring to do is go and get the youth, especially college-age students, young adults, and bring them in and once a month, give them a hot meal. Hopefully more than once a month, but ultimately give them a hot meal. And what that does is, if you've never been away from home, like you in the military, so you can readily relate, it's nothing like going somewhere and having someone that cares, sitting across the table from a human being and eating a hot meal. And if you think something so simple, it makes it, is meaningless. But if you've ever been away from home, you know exactly what that means, So Feeding Our Future is one program that we're endeavoring to share with the community and youth. But the more important thing, and in addition to Feeding Our Future, what we share and what I share with youth is, listen, every human being on this planet was sent here by design. There are no accidents. My story, my personal testimony, I was born to a 16-year-old, and I was born in 1966. So you know the statistics, the odds. It was not common. It was not kind. It was not cute. And I was sharing with the group on last night, she was told to abort. She was told to adopt. She was told I would never amount to anything. All of these were standards of the day that went along with the teenage mother. But thanks be to God that none of those decisions were made. And as a result of her having not gone along with the statistics, the opinions of others, and what I share is, and this is going back to your question, what do I share with the youth? Don't allow the opinions of others to become your facts.
Wow.
Don't allow the opinions of others to become your facts. See, the fact of the matter is you might not have been born in the best condition, but that does not mean that you have to become the worst individual as a result of where you were born. I stand as a living testament to one who was born in the Deep South, the Cradle Confederacy, teenage mother, on and on and on. But I am the same young man that could tell you about meeting Ronald Reagan's entire cabinet in Moscow, Russia.
Your man.
So you can't tell me that it can't be done.
What I would have given to have met that man. Wow. And, what we're having today is, you mentioned the youth succumbing to peer pressure. And with today's television and other social medias out there, people are succumbing to peer pressure. And, now they make an excuse for that. There is something called, and this I'm sure is going to tick the ever-loving out of you and Curtis, something they call post-election stress disorder. The snowflakes out there, because they didn't get Hillary elected, are now claiming they have a psychological disorder that has caused a divorce, that has caused people to quit their jobs, that have people say, well, I can't eat anymore, or I have an eating disorder because Hillary Clinton wasn't elected. And they have the audacity to compare it to post-traumatic stress disorder that our military men and women suffer from, and that as a law enforcement officer I suffered from at one point in time. How dare they even put themselves in the same crowd?
Well, I would love to hear Curtis's response to that as well, but from a personal perspective, I'm concerned and challenged when we throw out terms loosely, such as post-traumatic stress disorder. I believe that had Hillary won, and even given the fact that President Trump did win, again, I don't buy into partisan party politics. I think it becomes an excuse. We get into the blame game. No matter who is the president of the United States, Curtis can bear witness to this as well. We are educated, taught, and have learned to respect the office of the president. So therefore, no matter who is in the office, there's an obligation and a responsibility that we have as citizens of this country to go out and give our country and to give our citizenry our best of whatever it is available at that time. I think that when we start to blame the outcomes of something that we truly have no direct input as to the outcome of an election, so to speak, we can vote, but our responsibility is almost working at it. I could compare you're working at the radio station or wherever your show is produced. If the management of the station changes positions today or tomorrow, is that going to stop you from doing your show?
Actually, no, because I run the show. It's me, myself.
Okay, well, even better example. So what we learn is, although things happen and positions change, your focus has to be that of assuring that you're giving your best, regardless of the overriding circumstances. And I think when we begin to blame and make decisions based on things that are so far removed from us, and I know Curtis is saying, where in the world is he going with this? Well, here it is, and I could have summed it up in 2 minutes by saying this: win at your position. Win at your position. What does that mean? What condition is your house in? How's your family relationship? How's your bank account? How's your yard? How's your neighborhood? See, these are things that you can have a direct impact on. But I'm willing to bet you that some of these people that are out protesting and clamoring because Hillary didn't win, and I asked the question before the election: if Hillary should win, is she going to come and go to work for you on the Monday morning after the election? And I think the answer still remains no. If President Trump or then candidate Trump, if he wins, is he going to come and go to work for you? And I think the answer still remains no. So that says we have an obligation and a responsibility to win at our position. And if everyone should begin to win at their position, doing the things that you can have a positive and a direct impact upon, we'll see a great difference in our country. But what is happening again, everybody is engaging in the blame game. And again, party affiliations becomes an excuse to justify wrongdoing. And I think it's time out for that. Accountability has to come in. If it is wrong, let us declare that it is wrong. If it is right, let us encourage right to continue. And I think we'll see a better America and, in fact, a better world. And that's my personal opinion.
Curtis, go ahead.
I will say this. There were many elections where there were people who were elected, excuse me, that I didn't vote for, but I didn't have a connection over it. I sucked it in or whatever, and went on with my life until the next election. Because, see, unlike other countries, especially third world countries, here we do our protests, or we're supposed to, at the ballot box. And I think there are some people in this country who seem to have forgotten that, and they're really carrying on like they're in a third world country. And, we're supposed to be the most civilized republic on the planet, and yet the world's seeing us as nothing more than a country in decline when they see things like this.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah. I think it comes back to that we have gotten ourselves away from faith, whereas we were taught in the Christian faith or the Judaist faith or a lot of other, actually just about every religion except for Islam has the idea of do unto other as you would have others do unto you. We've walked away from that. We have stopped looking at it saying, well, if I don't want that person to treat me in this manner, why am I doing it to them? We've forgotten about, holding the mirror up and asking ourselves, do we want this happening to us? We forgot about that. This is what was missing. I think this is something very important and missing. It's not being taught in school. It's not being taught anywhere. It's not being supported out in the social arena either. I think we need to bring that back into our lives, and maybe then we won't find so much partisanship.
Absolutely. I'm in total agreement. In fact, to certainly piggyback on Curtis's last response, I so agree. I think that, Curtis, what has happened in our country is And here's a term that I coined. It might not sound right, but I hope you can get it. And it goes, and it simply says that we are overly blessed, if that makes any sense. And I think in our country, we have so many freedoms and liberties that people take for granted. The liberties and the freedoms that we have here in our country. And I think we miss and omit the fact that how blessed and fortunate you are that you can and you are allowed to go out and protest an election. Now, let's stop for a moment and look at that word, an election. Not a dictatorship. It wasn't forced upon you. This was a collective decision that was made. People went out and voted, and their votes were accumulated, and their challenges and differences of opinion. But the fact of the matter is, a decision was made. So for 4 years, we have to go with that decision until such time as it's time to do it again. And I think in our country, people have gotten so comfortable because, again, freedom isn't free. But if you get freedom and you don't realize the cost of freedom or what it costs to get freedom, then you have a tendency like our kids. I think our children are so overly blessed. I tell my son that all the time. I think the problem that you have, son, is that you got too much and it costs you little or nothing. And so you feel like the world now owes you something because every time it looked or appeared that you had a need, daddy and mommy was there to supply. Well, life just doesn't happen that way. And sometimes in our efforts to do good for our children and doing good for our country, our country begins to take it for granted. And like a spoiled child, when it doesn't. Go ahead, I apologize.
I think that a lot of service personnel who's been overseas to countries who were poorer than the United States, they understand everything you're talking about because only then, when you see how other people live or barely live in, do you appreciate what you got back at home. And the problem with a lot of these folks out here protesting and whatnot, they never been anywhere to really know what's going on in places like Egypt or Haiti or Argentina. You know? So they think they got it bad. They really don't know the truth or have the truth of the matter.
No, unfortunately, we are a disposable society. Go ahead.
I apologize.
No, I said we're a disposable society. If we can't get a cell phone signal, we are then, traumatized. If we end up with a flat tire and we don't have a tow truck there within 15 minutes, we are being extremely inconvenienced and, I'm sorry, victimized because you can't be there when I snap my fingers. And yet they don't understand what is going on to the women in Saudi Arabia or other Muslim countries where they're enslaved. They're treated as third-class citizens, not allowed to drive, not allowed to get an education. They look at it through a very narrow window, and they don't even take the time to learn about other people and their conditions.
Absolutely. And I was about to chime in. I remember when I first arrived in Moscow, and, I had read about the Depression. And of course, none of us were around when the Depression occurred. My grandfather was a young man at that time, and he would always tell me how horrific it was, and some of the things that they had to do in order to survive the Depression. And I had read about the Depression, had seen some movies, about the soup lines and just how horrific the conditions were, only to arrive in Moscow, get this, guys, in 1987, and to see a bread line. Amazing. People standing in line, not to get a loaf of bread, to get a piece of bread. And to walk by and see stores with nothing on the shelf. I mean, there are so many liberties that we take for granted in this country, and you go to other countries and you realize real quick, immediately almost, how good you have it, just how good you have it. And I think we owe it to ourselves. And to come back to what you were mentioning before, faith. I share with people all the time that personally, to me, I believe that faith is a vehicle that all can ride in. But one of the conditions or one of the keys to having a sound or a foundational faith is understanding. And I think this is where the challenge comes in. Guys, when we start talking about belief systems, and you name Islam and others, I think like like conditions here in the United States. I think it takes being exposed or taking the time to study other belief systems, how other people live culturally, that it is then that you become sensitive and aware that not everybody lives or eats the way that you do, but to be on this earth, you have to eat to live. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it actually does, because my church that I belong to, they do a lot of missionary work. And they'll go, say, for example, to Africa or to some of the poorer countries in the Caribbean or South America and set up water filtration systems. Or, they'll go out there and proselytize. While they're doing that, there's a lot of work that can be done to help people around the globe. You just got to open your heart to it and realize that what we live here is a gift. What we have here is one of the greatest countries in the world. It is a gift from God that we exist. We should share that gift. And that is what is missing in people's lives. Everything is me, 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 give me, give me, give me, look at me, aren't I important? It's every day someone is playing the game of American Idol. And that's
right.
Not what we are as true Americans.
And then also, I think in agreeing with you 100%, totally in agreement with you, I think it's not only sharing, it's how we go about sharing. If I offered Curtis, I'll say it this way. If I had a piece of pie, whatever your favorite pie is, and I was sitting there eating the pie and all you could hear was the good and the smile on my face, and you see the joy, I mean, you could sense the joy when you walk in the room, when you enter the room, that pie must be good. Well, why would you say, look, he's patting his feet? Oh man, it just looks good. It looks desired. It looks like something that I would want to eat. On the other hand, if I walked in a room and there Curtis is eating the pie, and every time he looked down at the pie, he looked as if, he's about to regurgitate. I mean, the smile, the frown on his face, the brow, he's sweating, he's panting, and then he has the audacity to ask me if I want something. You think I'm going to eat that? Nah, no, thank you. And I think what happens is in our efforts to share, we're turning people off because they're looking at us, not what we're saying, but they're looking at how we're living. Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to be involved in something that nobody wants to participate or be involved in something that you don't even look like you're enjoying. And I think that might be part of the challenge. We're not converting people to Christianity because of the faith that we've now put upon Christianity and our belief system.
Yeah, exactly. And, this is something I was reading an article in World Magazine about Morgan Freeman's new TV show with National Geo and how he's actually distorting some of the truths about Christianity. And they are actually reaching out to his show to say, hey, listen, you've got some problems here. You need to correct this because this is not what true Christianity is about. And we're allowing the media and Hollywood and everyone else to take the story of Christianity and destroy it. All of a sudden Christianity, to be a Christian is a really bad thing. But they're making it a bad thing without even knowing what it truly is.
Exactly. And my challenge to the listeners and anyone else that would care to receive it would be this. I share with a gentleman, there was a question, an evangelistic question. And he was being sarcastic and asking the question. He said, well, how soon do you start telling your kids about it? And I said, about what? About that. And he pointed at the Bible and the tract that I had in my hand. I said, well, there is no age limit or set time that you should begin to instill, foundational facts and truth and, share those facts and in and with your children. I said, but however, here's the thing to be concerned about. It won't be about what you tell them. It will be about what they see. And if what they see doesn't line up with what you're saying, you're going to be a hypocrite anyway. Mm-hmm. And that ended that conversation. Because and I think I offer the same challenge to the listeners. It will not be about what you're saying. It's going to be about what people are seeing. And if you're coming up to me with your fist balled and hit me in my mouth, but on the other hand, telling me that you love me in the name of Jesus. Now, which one am I going to believe? It's not that difficult. But if you're coming... Go ahead, Curtis. I apologize.
I got one more question for you. In your ministry, have you come across many veterans or law enforcement or first responders who have job-related stress? And if so, what were some of their concerns?
Well, I think an awesome question. And Annie, I'm sure you'll love this as well. And certainly to answer your question, yes, I do. I work out at a local YMCA here, and a lot of law enforcement and first responders, as well as military veterans, are there. And we share it, and the guys have grown comfortable enough with me now where they're opening up and beginning to share ministry-wise with me. And one of the things that I've discovered, and Annie, you could help me with this from a personal perspective, is that, yes, the officers, policemen are dealing with PTSD. The challenge is that if these officers were to disclose or come forward saying that they want to talk about it or acknowledge that they're dealing with it, they are put on record. In other words, who wants to come forth and say that I have a problem, and then if something happens, I'm, it's in my record as if I'm, mentally unstable.
We call it.
Here's the challenge.
Yeah, we call it the rubber gun
Here's
squad.
The challenge for you, Annie.
We call them the rubber gun squad because these are the guys that did come forward, and yes, they've got their guns pulled, they're put on restricted duty, they're put behind a desk, and these are a lot of good street cops. And, it does go on their permanent record, and a lot of the guys will not come forward. I didn't even know I suffered it until after I was retired and 9/11 happened, and I was watching it at home. And from that moment forward, it finally hit me. I mean, if my husband would walk in the bedroom, and we have a carpet, so as he's walking through the bedroom, and I suddenly hear him step on the tile in the bathroom, I'd jump. I would hit the ceiling because of the sound that I didn't expect. I wasn't aware that someone was behind me. And there was other things that I was doing, loud noises, I would jump. And it was just, I wasn't aware I was going through it. And a lot of cops are like that until you start talking to them. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that can explain a lot of things that's going on. But
right.
a lot of cops, they're told that, all right, yeah, we've got psych services. You can go over there. You can talk to them, tell them anything you want. But the moment you step in there, you have to surrender your firearm. You put on the rubber gun squad, and it goes in your record. It may even cost you a promotion later on down the road, or a good assignment that you were looking for. I was looking to go into canine, and unfortunately, I ended up being allergic to dogs, so that didn't work out too well. But it is a stigma. And I'm sure the military also faces the same thing. You hear it from military men and women all the time. I'm afraid because it's going to go on my record and I'm going to be penalized.
Absolutely. And here's where I was going with that, Annie. Imagine now, Curtis, if you will, Annie, the police officer, still active, still on the force, realizes that something's not right, and comes forward, seeking assistance. Imagine if all the officers were required to go through a once a month, once quarterly, once annually, whatever it is. In other words, everybody had to go and sit on the couch. Do you realize the number of officers that could be helped?
Oh, yeah.
But because of the stigma that is attached to getting help, nobody's coming forward to get help. And now in lies where you see the shootings where the cops are, killing quote-unquote unarmed men, and there's a story behind that as well. And there's certainly no justification. But what I'm saying here, what I'm getting at to answer your question, Curtis, is we have a lot of officers, and the elephant in the room is nobody wants to deal with PTSD. Let's talk about veterans for a moment. And I segue into that with this. There was an incident last year, certainly. I don't get the date and all that correct, but the young man was a Marine, Curtis, hold your opinion, and went down to Louisiana and shot the cops, shot the police officer. You all remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let me give you this, and perhaps you heard it, but I'm willing to bet that you didn't. This young man had reached out to the VA for help, only to be told by the VA, and his mother was quoted in the USA Today saying that my son told me that the VA said that they only deal with the top 1%, and maybe the numbers are wrong with some. Anyway, he was rejected at the VA. As a result of having been rejected at the VA, You get people that are out here playing games, these organizations, Black Lives Matter and other organizations, and they make all of these inflammatory remarks. And what they don't realize, you have a lot of guys that have come home battle wounded, battle tested, and dealing with PTSD. And what I share with people all the time, to include myself, listen, we were not taught to wrestle, to negotiate, we were trained to kill. And PTSD is very serious. And if you should trigger, and there's no excuse, and please hear me, and I'm certainly not justifying anything. My point here is there needs to be a system that is better and readily able to accept and to assist those that are coming out, crying out for help, rather than a system that says when you cry for help, we're going to stigmatize you, we're going to reject you, and then send you back into a society that doesn't care that you're dealing with a sickness, although it's not a physical sickness. And that's part of the problem. And I am an advocate for PTSD, Curtis, because I am experiencing and have experienced the same thing. You go to the VA, it took me almost 10 years to realize that something was not right. My back was up against the wall. I go to the VA, and they tell me, you might be depressed, but there's nothing wrong. Now, coming back to you, Annie, except for the grace of God, I could have very well been that Marine in Louisiana that went out and did something bad because I was rejected after so long trying to figure it out finally to understand that something was wrong. And here it is, Curtis. I didn't have the terminology right. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Now,
here's a sick person that goes to the hospital, and because you don't give the clinical terminology for the sickness that you're dealing with, a civilian, former military, they tell you, you didn't say it right, so there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And we now have a new head for the VA, and I forgot what the gentleman's name was. He was on Fox News just a little while ago, and he is looking to overhaul the whole thing. You got to consider, you got 150,000 veterans that have had the Second Amendment right denied them because a clerk went and put a little notation on their medical file saying they may have some sort of a mental disorder without having seen a psychiatrist, and then having law enforcement show up on the front step with a warrant to confiscate all their firearms because the VA said there's a problem. And then you have guys that are going like you that do admit to having a problem and are being rejected. The system is upside down and backwards, and let's just hope this new VA official will start to turn over and get you guys and everyone else the care they need. You should be able to choose your own provider. You should be able to talk to someone in confidence without having it put in a permanent record and finding that you have your constitutional rights yanked from you. It is inexcusable. We give more care to illegal immigrants who are criminals than we do to our own men and women, many of them living homeless on the streets. It is inexcusable.
Absolutely, and the same, the same sentiment toward law enforcement. I think a part of the problem, and if it was properly vetted and researched, they will discover that a lot of these officer-involved shootings are as a result of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, you're jumping
guys that are triggered because that high. It's a high when you're charged day in and day out, and you guys in law enforcement, having been in law enforcement in the Marine Corps, there's a danger in being down. In other words, when you're not on, because the minute that you get comfortable and it's just whatever the call is, that could be the call. There's no way of knowing when that call comes across that radio what's going to be on the other end of that response. And so you have to be on 24/7. The duty that I was on in the Marine Corps, we throw Moscow out there, and I talk about it as if it was some dream or some fantasy, but what people don't realize, we went in to relieve guys that were involved in the espionage scandal. Oh, by the way, it was still communist Russia. Everything that we touched was bugged.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So we had we had our nation's media, we had worldwide media, i.e., NATO and all of the media that went along with them. We had the FBI, the CIA, the KGB. All these people were on us. And we were given one rule and one rule only. You are not to communicate with anyone. Imagine living that for one solid year.
Yeah, it's a general adrenaline rush all the time, and the second you let your guard down, that's when it may cost someone their life. So yeah, I can understand that. Absolutely. Looks like we've got our next guest in on the line. Pastor, were you able to stick around, or you have another interview you have to go to?
I am fine. You are the interview that I had to go to. We had the times twisted, but I am certainly enjoying myself.
Well, let's bring on our next guest. He was former Florida Representative, State Representative Mike Hill. Good afternoon, Mike. We have with us Pastor Davis K. Jackson. So welcome aboard, Mike, and welcome back.
Thank you, Annie, and hello, Pastor. How are you?
I am super, sir. Best day of my life. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, every day above ground is a good day, as my husband and I like to say. Hey, listen, I want to throw this little quote because we were talking about everything being politicized. This is one of my favorite guys, Groucho Marx, believe it or not. He once said, "Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies." Oh, is that not a mouthful? This guy was a gem. Oh, the world needs more men like him. But, Mike, isn't that what politics has devolved into, exactly this?
Well, it's at least what we have seen recently. And that quote is so accurate when it is applied more towards how liberals like to govern than it is how conservatives like to govern. That being said, conservatives also make the same mistake to some degree.
And Pastor, you want to respond to that? Because this was along the line of what we were talking about before.
Absolutely, it was. And Representative, I thank you for your service, and honored to be a part of your conversation. I was sharing with Annie and Curtis earlier that I believe that affiliations have begun to blind us. Party affiliations, relative affiliations, friendship affiliations, and in agreeing with what you're saying, I think a lot of times we have begun to mask wrong by affiliations. In other words, if you're a Democrat and it's wrong, it's okay. If you're a Republican and it's wrong, it's okay. And I think we have to get back to a line of accountability. And I'm of the app. I share with people all the time. I am a pastor, not a politician. And party-wise, I'm an independent. I vote according to whatever the policy or law is, how it's going to impact my community, my family, my state, my country. And I think in that it produces a better night's sleep for me. I like to share with people because I vote my conscience, not affiliation.
Well, if our founding fathers did not envision a two-party system. I mean, they would be horrified if they saw how our politics are played out today. They thought it should be everyone an independent and vote your conscience. But now, where's the money going to come from unless you have two parties? It's all about the Benjamins. It's no longer about what your policy is. It's about who can get the best fundraiser, who can get the most votes, and then make yourself a career politician. Just keep on getting reelected. It's gone off the track. We've lost our guidance. Pastor?
Absolutely. I am a pastor, not a politician. So my view is going to be based, more from the lines of a pastor or from a faith perspective. And my hat goes off to politicians. And having lived in a political or diplomatic world more so than a political world, having been on embassy duty, I understand the sacrifices that are made, and there are certain things that have to occur for them to get, the things that are necessarily accomplished. So I certainly don't debunk what it is that they have to do. In fact, my heart goes out to them a lot of times for having to do it. I know that I have no desire, would not make a good politician at all. So I certainly respect what they have to do to get, to keep our country moving forward.
Well, Mike, you've been in that seat. Go ahead.
Hey, yes. What I would say the unfortunate reality of being in office nowadays, being in politics, is that it is largely driven by money, which is driven by so many who have the desire to be reelected. I know that those, for example, who are at the congressional level, they spend somewhere from 2 to 4 hours every day, Monday through Friday, making phone calls requesting campaign funds for their next campaign. And they are required to do that because if they don't, then the leadership within their own particular party will not help them with their new campaign, with their next campaign. Because their mindset is that why should we give you money for your campaign if you're not trying to get it yourself? So they spend half of their time, Monday through Friday, trying to get campaign funds for their next campaign. And what's unfortunate about that is that the amount of campaign funds can actually buy a campaign, can buy a victory in terms of the amount of time you're on TV, your radio ads, your mailers and flyers and so forth, because so many people are not aware of what's actually going on in a political situation, because they don't know or take the time to educate themselves about the candidates. They believe whatever they see on TV or whatever comes in the mail to them. And so you can actually sway a majority of the voting population if you have enough money to outspend your opponent in getting your message out, whether you're a good candidate or not. And so that's where we are now, and it's unfortunate. So as you said, Annie, it's the dollar that really drives us versus our principles, as the good pastor was saying, what should be driving us. And you'll find that there are a small minority in both parties who do operate out of principle like that, but unfortunately you don't see them in office very long.
No, unfortunately we don't. You are a perfect example. Alan West is another perfect example. You don't see them in office very long because they do stand by their principles. I work on the politics at the local level as a Tea Party leader, and we have a local community issue going on where we've got a state sales tax for the gas sales tax that we're fighting. And a lot of people go, well, you need money for the road repair. And when I finally started to break it down to them, what is happening with these dollars, your tax dollars, and how the South Carolina Department of Transportation is operated. And once they looked at how the convoluted system was and how the waste of tax dollars, I says, if you reform it, you clean up the waste, and then you clearly define what projects should go forward, what repairs are needed, what maintenances are needed, and have the public demand that these things are met, you're not going to need a single penny more in taxes. And when you break it down for someone who's willing to listen, you win the issue and you can turn the ballot over. We've done that in our last election here in the countywide, but we need people out there to educate them to negate the need of that dollar in the campaign. Mike?
Absolutely. And here in Florida, it's the same. I think you'll find it in just about any state, is that oftentimes the way you get a road repaired or a new road paved or a bridge restructured or built, a lot of it has to do who has the most political pull in that district. Are they an appropriations chairperson? Are they a transportation chair? And all of that is driven not so much by the need, but by your own political pool, which unfortunately that in and of itself creates abuse, waste, even fraud. You can use that term. But the transportation system is only one small part of it, Annie. What we need to have is something like you did, starting a Tea Party. I started the Northwest Florida Tea Party, is a grassroots movement which is demanding transparency on how government operates and how your hard-earned tax dollars are being spent.
Now, that is the God's honest truth.
Mike.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Mike, what branch of the service were you in again?
I was in the Air Force.
Air
10
Force.
years.
So we got a Navy, Air Force, we got Marine. Well, in the service, we have lawful orders and we have unlawful orders. Now, when it comes to politics, we have politicians who either don't want to obey the law or they think they're above the law. What are your thoughts on these kind of characters in office, and what should we do about it?
You do have those in office who think that they are above the law. They believe that if they can get away with it, then it's legal and it's okay. And it's not. They should not be above the law. They are the ones who create the law. And so they, more than any others, should be held accountable to those laws. And I would even say to a higher standard. If you are the ones who are creating those laws, then should you break that law, or even if your intent was to break the law, that's a higher standard you should be held to. And none of this that because of who you are, you think you can get around or above the law, because that is not how a democratic republic is to work. We are all supposed to be under the rule of law, because without that rule of law, that's when you start having a situation where what could eventually lead to anarchy. Well, if you're not following the law, then I don't have to follow the law. And if you're not doing it, then, wait, you're not getting punished. Why should I get punished for it? Which, of course, is not a valid defense. But eventually it could lead to others, because they are observing those in leadership positions breaking the law and getting away with it, attempting to do the same thing.
Well, Pastor, we can say the same thing also applies to faith. You know, we have a set of rules and laws in Christianity, but people feel I'm above it. You know, even though I claim I'm a Christian or I'm a Jew, I don't have to follow the tenet.
Absolutely, and that goes back to what we were sharing earlier before the representative entered into the conversation. Accountability, as I was sharing with Annie and Curtis, Representative Mike, that again, based upon affiliation, let's just say from a Christian perspective, if you are a member of my church, if Mike does it, it's okay. You see, but now if Annie does it, who's not a member of Magnolia Baptist Church, it's wrong. No, it's wrong regardless of who does it. And I think what is happening in our country, as I was saying earlier, we've laxed our sense of integrity. We've laxed our sense of accountability, and based upon affiliations and relationships now. See, I would liken what Mike was saying a few minutes ago to the political side of the house, let's just say. Based upon a relationship, if Mike was with the right person and Mike did it, it would be okay. But if Mike were affiliated with another, okay, as a Tea Party conservative, if Mike were to do it, then he would be breaking the law. But if Mike were, affiliated with the right Democratic, office or party or whatever have you, I don't know the political terms, it would be okay. And the bottom line is we have to go back to it. We have to challenge ourselves individually and collectively to get back to a point in our lives, in this country more in particular, where we are holding one another accountable for what is right and what is wrong, basic right and wrong. And I think we can cloud it and put titles on it and make it all grandiose. But the bottom line is we have a deterioration of morals in our country. And the law is meaningless now. As we were saying earlier, you can, as a child, you can join a team now and not even get in the game, and you'll still get a trophy at the end of the year for participating. And so we're raising a group of young adults and children now that feel like they don't have to abide by rules. Because if they go to school and you say something to them, telling them that they can't make noise, or they can't throw a rock, or they can't do whatever the rule says they can't do, a parent comes up and is ready to accost a teacher because nobody's wrong.
It's also, I think, that we could say it's also the loss of the neighborhood community, where, growing up, I'm a little older than you are, Pastor, but it used to be that, when the kids were out there playing in the yard or whatever, the parents all watched out. So if I walked past one of my neighbor's house and I was doing something wrong, that parent was going to come out and yell at me. And God forbid I went back home, because by the time I got home, that person would be on the phone with my mom or dad saying, by the way, did you know she did X, Y, Z? Holy moly, you'd be in trouble. It used to be a community that looked out for each in today's society. It's everyone looking out for themselves. What do you take on this, Mike?
Right.
You're absolutely right, Annie, and I think the root cause of that is the disintegration of the family, and that is particularly obvious in the black community, where too many young mothers are having children out of wedlock, the father's nowhere around, and the government has stepped in to fill that role of providing for that mother and for that child in the terms of welfare assistance, or for WIC, women and children, infants and children, subsidized housing. It is now where the government has stepped in to fulfill the role of the man of the household instead of a two-parent family. And it has not always been that way in the black community. I know Dr. Thomas Sowell has documented this very well, he and Walter Williams, where if you go back to the 1950s, you did not see the prevalence of one-parent households as we are seeing right now. You didn't see the high number of out-of-wedlock births that we have now in the black community. Back in the 50s, you did not see that. So what caused that? What caused it was in the 1960s, Lyndon Johnson decided he was going to declare a war on poverty, and as grand as his idea may have been and his intentions were, the results were disastrous. And what it has done is the breakup of the black family. And when you don't, and statistics prove it, when you don't have a two-parent household, the outcome for that child is not good. They have a tendency to not do as well in school or even finish school, which leads to a life of crime. And that is what we are seeing right now in the black community, is that breakdown of the family and crime becoming a prevalent thing, to where I know in the Florida House we had a group of Democrats who went around yelling that we need to get rid of the school-to-prison pipeline. What do you mean get rid of it, stop the school? Well, we need to stop putting them in prison. We need to give them warnings first, which is, of course, ludicrous. That is not the root of the problem. The root of the problem is getting the black family together again, a man and a woman raising their children in the way they should go, so that when they grow old, they won't depart from it.
You know, it's so easy. It's my baby's daddy. You had that one woman in Florida. She had, I don't know how many kids, but 8 different baby daddies. And she was asking the state of Florida, I'm sure you remember this one, Mike, asking or demanding the state of Florida to pay for the kids until finally, social services went in there going, wait a minute, there's something wrong here, and took the kids away from her. It's the free ride that they look for. The more kids you have, the more money you get. It doesn't matter whether or not you use that money to take care of the kids, but there's another baby daddy always to come along. And that, again, is the problem where the fathers are not involved with the children. I was at my eye doctor one time, and there was a older couple in the room, a black family, and a young father came in with his young boy, and he's there with the boy, helping him to read, tying his shoe, really involved. Obviously, this was a caring, doting father. And that older couple said, it is nice to see fathers getting back into their children's lives. This is what we need, family stability. But how do we get this message across, Pastor?
Awesome question. And my response would be, I think, Representative Mike, I know what the statistics are. It can't be argued, but I would say that I think he who determines your value determines your worth. He who determines your value determines your worth. And if I want to attack anything, I have to go to the first thing I'll identify as a Marine. If we find an enemy and we want to attack that unit or that battalion or that country, whatever it is, I have to discover the strength of the unit. And once I identify the strength of the unit, I know that if I attack and can counter the strength of the unit, ultimately I'll destroy the unit, the town, the city, the country, whatever it is. And saying that to say that the black woman has always been the height of our community. she's the mother of our universe. And once the division came in, where the black male was separated, and there became a man versus a black male versus black female polarization. Therein began the downfall of society in general, not just in the black community, but society in general. And to fast forward, what we have now is a group of people who have no values, and the values that have been enacted or established are misplaced values. Because in our community now, it's about what you drive, the color of your hair, the Real Housewives, no values. Because these are things that are meaningless. These are things that won't amount to anything long term. So the answer to the question is we have to begin, and I also challenge it from this perspective. It is amazing when I hear about the subsistence programs, welfare, WIC, so forth and so on, how ironic it is that there's always a black face on their picture. And what you'll discover is, in this country, we are called minorities. And we are called minorities because we aren't the majority in this country. There are states where there are predominantly Caucasian domiciles. In other words, there's more Caucasians in many states throughout our country than there are African Americans. And I'm saying that to say that you will discover, and this is a fact as well, statistics will support the fact that there are more Caucasians on subsistence than there are African Americans. It just so happens that the African American face is always the face that is shown. That is no excuse, and it's certainly not a justification. We have to get back to basic values, believing in oneself, going back to what I shared earlier, win at your position. Representative Mike, I was sharing with Curtis and Annie earlier, I was the product of a single-parent household, but I did not allow, and my mother did not allow, statistics to become my reality. This same, child of a single-parent situation, my mother was 16 years old, ended up in Moscow, Russia. I ended up on embassy duty. I served in Paris, France, Madrid, Spain, Belgium, on and on and on. I speak 5 different languages. That's not to toot my horn. That is to say that it can be done. You don't have to become where you start out at, if the proper values are instilled from wherever you are. My book, Life in the Second Half, deals just with that fact. It doesn't matter what happens at the beginning. It is the end of the game. As we all can agree, the Atlanta Falcons can attest. If you don't win the second half, you lose the game. So I think when we instill those values and we begin to challenge by way of integrity, by way of accountability, if you are wrong, no matter where you are, who you are wrong, we will begin to see a change and a dynamic in our country, our nation, our homes, and in our neighborhoods as well.
I wanted to add that as far as our morals being degraded, and we were talking earlier about how families would watch over kids at playgrounds in the old days. Today's social media is that new playground, and a lot of parents are having a hard time navigating this new playground because they're not technically inclined. I think another reason why we have moral decline is the media, especially Hollywood. I mean, when you get shows like Flavor Flav or The Housewives of Atlanta or Beverly Hills, that's not the examples we should be giving to our young people, because if you know anything about cable TV and satellite TV today, everyone has access to that, especially kids under 12. So they get to see this stuff, where in the past, we didn't have all these channels and all these adult situation shows. So we have to find a way to bring some quality programming back into the home and try to get away from all this nonsense that Hollywood's putting out, because it's not doing the nation any good.
No, there's a lot of truth to that, because I was watching the Hallmark commercials just before Valentine's Day, and the subliminal messages that are in there. And at one point, there was a same-sex couple kissing, and I went, I am never buying a Hallmark card again. Not that I'm going to judge anyone. It's just that the fact that they were promoting something like this, it just turned around and said to me, They're looking for the easy buck. They don't care about moral values. They don't care about what my value is. It just means that you only care about whether or not I buy your item. I'm not buying the item anymore. I will then boycott any organization that will turn around and devalue my morals. I mean, Kellogg's is no longer getting my business either. So, I mean, there's companies out there I will no longer work with. But can we get people to adhere to these and then stand by their own moral values, Mike?
Absolutely, and it's so needed. And Pastor Jackson, I don't want you to take this as an offense because it's not speaking to you or your church or your congregation. But I would say that the church in America has failed in what it is supposed to do, and that is to set the moral tone for this country. The church has been a failure since about the 1960s. And I think a reason for that is we have seen now where the church, the body of the living God, has gotten itself into a position where money has also become so important to them that a pastor, and I don't care what color of the congregation, the pastors have become too concerned with offending their congregation that if they don't say the right thing, people will leave, and so that means now that the tithes and offerings will go down, and now you're in trouble because you have this note you have to pay on this building that you've bought, and the remodeling that has to be done, and so forth. But what we don't see coming out of the church today in America is setting that moral tone to where it should be emphatic coming from the pulpit. It is wrong to have sexual relations outside marriage. It is wrong to steal. It is wrong to cheat. It is wrong to lie. Instead, we hear coming from the church so often now, God wants you to be prosperous. God wants you to have an abundant life, which he does, but there should also be setting that moral tone of what is wrong right now. We're not hearing the talk coming from the pulpit that abortion is wrong. It's murder. That homosexuality is wrong. It's an abomination before the eyes of God. Now, again, Pastor, I'm not saying you don't do that, and there are probably some churches that do. But as an aggregate, the church in America has abdicated its responsibility of setting the moral tone for this nation.
Wow. There's a lot to say with that, Pastor, because I can tell you right now, our church is in a battle. I belong to one that is extremely conservative, and it was split where another group is more progressive. And now they're in a battle over the property. You know, who owns this property or that one? And there is a split with a lot of churches. There are churches like mine that will adhere to the conservative values like Mike is talking about, and there are others that will give in to the whim of the people, so whatever the flavor or the idea is of the day, they will bend to it, like a Unitarian church does. But, you know, this is what we need. We need leadership from the pulpit, and we need the Black Robe Regiment to come back and not be afraid of speaking politics from the pulpit too, because I had a pastor right after the determination of the Supreme Court on same-sex marriage. He spoke out against the Supreme Court's decision, and the following time he gets up there to do his sermon, he apologized to the congregation, and that angered me. He should never have done that. I felt that was wrong. But what is your opinion, Pastor?
Awesome. And Mike, I am certainly not offended. In fact, I'm almost led to ask if you were listening to my brothers and my conversation earlier, because I share the exact same values, and I don't say that. I don't kowtow. If I don't itch, I don't scratch. If it's not fun, I don't laugh. And I don't, I have no respect of man. In other words, I respect everyone according to, their respect and their rapport with me. Having said that, to say that I'm in total agreement. I like to use the analogy of, and I share it with people all the time, that leadership is lonely. What you'll discover is to be powerful, most of the time you're not going to be popular. And when you're popular, most of the time you're not going to be powerful. I challenge people again to not Don't get in the blame game. Don't get in your feelings. I asked a question a couple of days ago in a talk that I shared with some people, and I shared with you guys as well, and I'll come back to the heart of the answer here. Are you a sacrifice or a convenience? And that speaks to, and that's not a question for you to answer in terms of for one another or to answer me. It simply says at some point you have to search within to determine who you are. And once those values have been properly instilled and identified, you don't settle, no matter what no matter what the crowd is doing, and no matter what the popular or the cliche or the trend is. When you have right values, when you know God's word according to God, not according to someone's interpretation, not according to the latest trend, not according to how it's going to impact or how others feel about it, but what the word of God says, then you govern yourselves according to that. Here's the thing that I share with people. No, nobody is perfect. That's not what we're after here. But what we want to identify is those things that only God can change within us if we will allow him to. But God is not even equipped to change. And here's what big is now. God is not even equipped to change that thing that we won't even acknowledge or identify. In other words, psychologists and psychiatrists have agreed that you can't change a problem that doesn't exist. You must first admit that it exists. And I think a lot of what we're seeing in terms of values are hurt people that have accepted and began to live out their pain. Hurt people. The homosexual community, I challenge them all the time. It is not my role or responsibility to change you. However, I'm going to show you what the truth according to God has said about this. Now, it is up to you to determine whether you want to change it or whether you want to continue to do what it is. But don't come to me asking me my opinion of how I feel about it and then come against me when I give you my opinion and how I feel about whatever it is, be it lying, be it stealing, homosexuality, because the argument is, well, you don't deal with adultery or fornication, and we can go on and on and on, as the representative was saying, in dealing with homosexuality. But in agreement with Representative Mike, until I, as a pastor, can stand before my congregation and challenge them to be the best possible you, whatever that is. Now, whatever it is, however it is that you came in here, my responsibility is to challenge you to lead better, and to not only lead better, but to go back into your home, your community, and be better as a result of coming here. You did not come to Magnolia Baptist Church for me to condone whatever it is that you're doing to hold you up in it. That's not what we're here for. My role is to give you an unadulterated word, not according to my opinion, but according to the word of God, and hold you accountable. And there's that word again. We are not holding one another accountable. I shared with my brother this morning. If you see me on the edge of a cliff about to jump, don't smile and tell me you love me and watch me leap. Hold me accountable. Tell me the truth. I might not like it. I might not appreciate it, but ultimately I will be better for having people around me that love me enough to love me when I'm incapable of loving myself. And I think a lot of what we're seeing is a result of self-hatred. We've lost love for ourselves because we don't know where the true origin of the love for ourselves, where it lies. And when you place your love on cars, on things, on trends, as I was saying earlier, it is a fleeting love. It is based upon the next best thing, what he or she does for you. And that is not what love is at all. And coming back to what Mike was saying in terms of pastors and I call it the gospel of prosperity. And Mike, you might get a chuckle out of this. Annie, you and Curtis as well. I share with people all the time. Hey, I'm not a prosperity preacher, but I am a pastor and a preacher that will prosper. And it won't be because I'm preaching a money God. I serve a big God, and my God has shown me how it is his will. He said, I came that you might have life and life more abundantly. But that is not the focus of my ministry. But I'm saying that, and I share with people that I don't want you to come in here under the guise of being broke and depressed and despondent and all that in the name of Jesus and the God that I serve. No, that is totally inaccurate and not according to Scripture. However, I am not going to sit here and feed you nothing but how to go out and get money, because that's not what it's about either. There's a fine median in there, and I think God's will for our lives is that we find that balance, that healthy balance, to understand that this world is not our final destination. We all have an appointment.
Pastor, if I may.
Go ahead.
And
yes, please.
Curtis and Annie, if we kind of back up a little bit, take a look at the broad picture and all that we've been talking about here since I came on the show, and I apologize I wasn't listening before I came on, but if we back up just a little bit and take a look at this whole big picture, I got a call from an NBC reporter about 2 weeks ago and asked me, Mike, do you know of any black Americans who support Donald Trump? And she added, besides you. And I said, yes. I said, yes, there are many. But she was valid in asking that question because we have seen over a generation now so many people in the black community supporting the Democrat Party for whatever reason. We have seen that the Democrat Party has been an utter failure to the black community, but they seem to want to support it anyway. So she was asking me, are there any black people who support Trump? And I told her, absolutely. We are seeing more and more in the black community leaving the Democrat Party and going to the Republican Party. And I think this is all part of it. Again, just kind of tying all this together. We look at the Democrat Party and their nominee, who is Hillary Clinton. And there can be no doubt that Hillary Clinton had an awful lot of baggage. Some of the things she were accused of outright just breaking the law. And as we were talking about before, if someone is breaking the law, why aren't they held accountable? And so since they're breaking the law, then I can too. And so we saw that the head of the Democrat Party was actually someone who has been accused of breaking the law, but that seemed to have been overlooked. And so I was trying to share with this reporter that there actually are black people who are leaving the Democrat Party and coming to the Republican Party because we can also see in the Democrat Party in their platform, they actually booed God. They removed God from their platform. They put in their platform that abortion should be a right for a woman to choose, that we embrace homosexuality, not only homosexuality, but the entire LGBT. Now they've added Q, TB, or whatever on the end of it. It keeps expanding in terms of the weirdness that is there. And for the black community, that is not where they are. The black community overall is not someone who embraces abortion, even though it is too prevalent in the black community right now because it is so easily accessible. But if they had their preference, it would be not to kill that child, but to give birth to that child. So I think what we're seeing is an awakening in the black community where, of course, with this election, Trump did not get 10% of the black vote, but he did get a lot more of the black vote than what has previously been for the Republican side within a generation. And I think we're going to continue to see that trend continue. Let me go just a little bit, one more example. The Democrat Party is supporting and is for the very illegal sanctuary cities. In other words, here's someone who has come into our country illegally. They are receiving welfare benefits. They have committed some crime, not all of them, but they have committed a crime, and now are supposed to be deported. And there are cities like San Francisco, Seattle, in Florida, Miami, which, by the way, has just reversed that, who have said, we will not cooperate with ICE and turn over these illegals. I mean, there's a party that is embracing that. So anyone with any type of moral compass or sense of right and wrong would have to say, that cannot be my party anymore. I cannot associate or affiliate with that. There comes a time you have to do what is right, and let's step over to the right side. And I think what you're going to see in the next 4 years during this Trump administration, more and more in the black community coming over to the Republican Party. And I have a younger brother who attested that very fact about 2 weeks ago.
No, it's funny. I have a friend of mine. I got a friend of mine up in Charleston. He happens to also be a pastor. He tried running against Clyburn unsuccessfully, and he went to an NAACP meeting where he was the guest speaker. Now, here's a Republican running for office, going to the NAACP, and he walked in the room, and he says, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And he says, the first question is that, do you believe you should keep all the money you earn? If you believe that, raise your hand. Everyone in the room raised their hand. He said, do you object to same-sex marriage and your church being forced to perform it? Everyone raised their hand. And he said, finally, do you believe government should never tell you what you should do or when you should do it? And they all raised their hand. And he said to the members of the NAACP, welcome to the Republican Party. This is what we have to awaken. We have to let everyone know that we all have the same values. It doesn't make us black or white. It makes us Americans, unhyphenated Americans. Go ahead, Curtis.
What I was going to say, blacks have not been told the true history of the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. And I think that's part of the problem and why we've been lost like the Israelites in the wilderness for 40 years or so. And the fact remains that it was the Democrat Party who instituted slavery. It was the Democrat Party who had as their militant wing the KKK. It was the Republican Party that came into existence for the sole purpose of abolishing slavery. But you never hear that. They will say during Black History Month, oh, so-and-so was an abolitionist. But they will not say that they were Republicans, because there was a Republican Party that fought to liberate blacks from slavery. It was Republicans who fought, and a lot of them died and were lynched right along with blacks, so they can have a right to vote and to become citizens and own property. See, that message has been hidden over the decades, and it's something we have to get back out there.
If I may, and I'm so in agreement with both Mike and Curtis, and as you guys were both talking, what was placed in my spirit and on my mind is the fact that I think what we have is a communications problem. In other words, the very people that need the message of, and again, I say I'm not a politician, I am a pastor. I vote independent. I am conservative. And what we'll discover when it's broken down and shared with the masses of our people, the black community more in particular, we are conservative by nature. I was in a class and was sharing with a group. I said, the next time you get an opportunity, and I challenge you guys to do the same, go and look at the civil rights movement. And what you'll notice is, and you probably saw it and didn't realize what you were seeing, what you'll notice is every man had on a hat. Oh, yeah. Most men had on ties. All the ladies had on bonnets. Most ladies had on dresses. And what that speaks to are conservative values. Now, what has happened, Mike, when we hear the word conservative is automatically tied to the Republican Party. When we hear the word liberal and liberalism, it is immediately and automatically tied to the Democratic Party. My challenge to all of us and our community more especially is to become independent in your thinking. We are naturally conservative. It's okay to want to wear a suit and tie. It's okay to wear your pants above your waist like a man should with a belt around his waist.
That's right.
It's okay to use the Queen's English and not be looked upon as some oddity or quote-unquote, pray for me if you will, talking white. What in the world is that? It's either you're using broken English or you're using ebonics or you're not using correct English. There's no such thing as talking white. And when we began to communicate it and teach politics, and I think part of the challenge is in our community we're so afraid of the political the political world. I'm more comfortable in the diplomatic world because I lived in a diplomatic world. And there's a difference, Mike. I know you agree, between politics and diplomacy. And a lot of what we're seeing now with President Trump is, what people don't realize is he's getting his first experience with diplomacy. He's never been a career politician, so politics is new to him as well. But he's also entering the diplomatic world, which is a whole nother experience if you've never been involved. But the point in our community is we have to begin to share with our people, both in the church, as you were saying, because there was a point, Mike, when the church was the pillar of the community. Everything came through the church.
That's right.
But it was also a time when the pastor was a conservative in his values. He might not have been a Republican per se, and perhaps maybe not even a Democrat, but he was certainly conservative in his values. And I think the difference has to be communicated to our community that it's okay to be conservative. And you don't have to be a Republican to be conservative. And to the Republican Party and to the Tea Party, we have to reach out to those that don't understand and let them know it's okay to not understand. And we're not going to beat you over the head because you don't understand. I was sharing earlier, Mike, even where the church is related, what has happened with the church is the face of the church has now changed because of the people that are attempting, notice the lingo, that are attempting to represent the church. And they are getting a bad image of what the church is. That is not the church. God's church still remains. And there are some people that are attempting to do right. And what you'll discover, and you can probably agree with me here, Mike, you can do 99 right things for your community or your district or whatever it is that you represent. But the one wrong thing that you do is all that is going to be reported.
That's right.
That is
and so is the narrative with the church. You have churches, you have conservative pastors and preachers that are attempting to do it, as Annie said, the black robe style, old school perhaps. But what you're going to see when they talk about the church are bring me $1,000 and if you do this, you'll get that. Again, that is an oddity. That is not the common church.
No, we're down to our last 7 minutes. This whole show has gone so fast. And I got to say, I had a whole set of notes and everything that I was going to touch on. I was going to ask you about Russia and everything else, what you think of the situation. But we've run out of time. And this show has been just a runaway show. Mike, I want to thank you. Mike, do you have a new website up or anything for anyone to go? Because I couldn't find anything.
No, I don't have a website at this time. They can reach me on Facebook or on Twitter. My Twitter is at Mike Hill FL, as in the state of Florida, at Mike Hill FL.
Oh, fantastic. And Pastor, I've got you up on our webpage. So people listen to the show. Most of them listen to the podcast later on in archives, and they just need to click on it, which is your name, davidkjackson.com, and they can check you out. Check out your book, which is Life in the Second Half, and it is a great read. It is very uplifting, and it's a wonderful book, and I think it should go in the hands of a lot of young people. Maybe we can get kids in high school to start reading it and get out of this victim mentality and make something of their life and serve their purpose in life. But I want to thank both of you for joining us. It has been so much fun and so much pleasure.
Thank you, Annie. It's been my pleasure, Pastor.
My pleasure as well, and good luck in your continual efforts to make our country great again, or to keep our country great again. I hear the term "make it great again." I think America is still the greatest country in the world, on earth. And we have to continue to do all that we can to keep it that way. And I think it's going to take every individual citizen to do their part. Win at your position. And what you'll discover, we'll all win in the second half. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Annie. And Curtis, again, thank you for your service. And it's been a pleasure, guys.
My pleasure to have both of you guys here. And I want to say that Mike, myself, former Lieutenant Governor Jennifer Carroll, and Glow Smith will be headlining an event March the 11th, and you can read more about this at PutnamRepublicans.org.
Congratulations on that, Curtis. We're coming down to our last few minutes. The show is just flew away. We'll be back here on Friday. We've got two of your friends joining us on Friday, Larry Harvey and Ted Williams, and a friend of mine, Cuban refugee, Ron Garcia Quintana. He's worked on various campaigns. He worked under President Reagan also. And then next week, we've got Bill Pickle from In the Pickle Barrel. And we will have Lieutenant Colonel Alan West on our show on Friday. So that is all for now. I just wish everyone have a safe week. And we'll be back here on Friday. So until then, I say good night and God bless. And we'll close out with John Kahn, American Heart.
I'm American made. I got American parts. I got American faith in America's heart. They say our reputation needs a new coat of paint and a delicate melody. But I say I like the bruises, 'cause the melody don't mean a thing if we don't have the strength to sing. And I won't be made to ever feel ashamed that I'm American made. I got American parts. I got American faith in America's heart. Go on, raise the flag. I got stars in my eyes. I'm in love with her, and I won't apologize. They say that we need changes, as if all the founding fathers seem to get it wrong. Oh, but I say that I still believe in the greatest innovator, liberator, cultivator, freedom knows. So I suggest you take a look inside. Man, I think you changed already. You went and lost your pride. But I'm American made. I got American parts. I got American faith in America's heart. Go on, raise the flag. I got stars in my eyes.
90 seconds.
I'm in love with her, and I won't apologize. Dress her up so you don't recognize her. She'll still be there if you wake up in the night. Because the mother
60 seconds.
can always find her child. Even when that child don't know he's lost. I'm American made. I got American parts. I got American faith in America's heart. Go on, raise the flag. I got stars in my eyes. I'm in love with her, and I won't apologize.
10 seconds.
I'm in love with her, and I